Subscribe and click the bell icon for the latest updates and notifications from the Indian Express.
Here I have announced 33% reservation for women in forthcoming Lok Sabha elections.
The long-standing debate on women's reservation has resurfaced. The Biju Janata Dal in Odisha has become the first party to implement the proposal for women's reservation in Parliament and state legislatures. Soon after, West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee announced her decision to give 41% of the Trinamool Congress tickets, which means 17 out of the 42 in West Bengal, to women.
It's just that they are upping the pressure on other parties to walk the same road. There are all these other parties whose lists are yet to come out. For them, now there is this additional pressure that have enough women representation. Otherwise, at least in these two states, BJD and Trinamool may take the momentum away in terms of getting women voters to vote for them. I'm not sure how much of a consolidated vote bank women are, because traditionally it is believed that women usually, when it comes to political choices, they choose those parties that their families want them to choose.
The proposal to implement a quota for women in the state and central legislatures has come up on several occasions in the past few decades.
There's so much discrimination against women in this country. So to address that, I think our voices should be heard and laws cannot be made without women.
But it has only been met with stiff opposition from various groups, including women's organizations. The idea first came up in the 1920s. However, it was opposed on the ground that it conflicted with the idea of universal adult franchise. All major women's organizations, along with the Home Rule League and the Indian National Congress, agreed that the public, official language of politics, especially before a colonial government, had to be a language of equality. Next, it came up in the 1970s when the Committee on the Status of Women in India published a report titled Towards Equality that pointed to the lack of progress made by women across social indicators as well as the discrimination they faced. Eventually, everyone agreed that reservations were needed for women in rural areas. Accordingly, the committee recommended the establishment of statutory women's panchayats.
Even if you look at the 2014 elections, the last elections that just happened to the parliament, women won at the rate of 9.5% from the last national parties, whereas men won at the rate of close to 6.5%. Right? Which means that if you give a ticket to a woman, the chance of winning is much higher. The Indian electorate likes women. We do vote for women. That's what the data says. So what is really happening is that the political parties are governed by a really patriarchal, unequal system where they are not encouraging the women party workers or the women in the local bodies to come into the parties and grow in the parties.
In 1988, the Department of Women and Child Development published the National Perspective Plan for Women 1988 to 2000 AD, which recommended a 30% reservation of seats for women at the level of panchayats and zilla parishads. In 1993, the 73rd and 74th Amendments to the Constitution provided for 1/3 reservation for women nationwide in rural and urban local bodies. Before the general elections in 1996, women's organizations asked all political parties to back reservation for women in state assemblies and parliament. However, the attempt to enact a law did not pass in parliament. Similar attempts were made in 1998 and 1999 but were unsuccessful. In May 2008, the UPA government proposed reservation for women as the Constitution 108th Amendment Bill. It was passed by the Rajya Sabha in March 2010 but was rejected in Lok Sabha. Those opposing the bill argued that it would benefit upper caste women at the expense of the lower castes and Muslims, and that it would ensure that powerful men are represented by proxy.
Many reasons why it was opposed. One of these was that if you reserve constituencies by rotation, then an elected MP would not have the incentive to work for his constituency, because the next election it could get reserved. But when it came to women's reservation, opponents actually said that it would make women's position in society less tenable, because then they would be seen as taking away legitimate opportunities for men, which is a very convoluted argument. Also, all the Mandal parties were strongly against it.
The bill lapsed after the dissolution of the 15th Lok Sabha in 2014. In January, women members of the Rajya Sabha urged the government to ensure the passage of the bill in Lok Sabha. The BJD has promised to take a step towards turning the long-standing demand into reality.